in the newsroom. You know the situation's bad when your stock market hits a 22-year low. Athens rocked by the inability to form a new government and the likelihood, 8 days after a general election, that Greek voters will be asked to return to the polls. You also know it's bad when the German finance minister tells a Sunday newspaper that Europe is ready for every eventuality, and 3 different central bankers openly evoke cutting Greece loose from the European single currency. But as those Eurozone ministers meet this Monday in Brussels, as they will tell you, it's not as simple as it seems. Not for the Greeks, forced to return to the drachma, nor for certain others who'd probably need all the strength of Europe's financial firewall to avoid a hypothetical domino effect, with anger against austerity already all too real in places like Italy and Spain. Whether to let Greece go is much more than just economics. It would be Europe's biggest political decision since the launch of the single currency. Today in the France 24 debate, Europe's no-Grexit situation. 10 time zones away from the Greek capital, Athens University's Yanis Varoufakis joins us. I take it from your location, Yanis, that you're not angling for a cabinet position.
This is quite correct.
Okay, thanks for being with us. We also want to thank for being with us from Brussels, from the Redefined think tank, Sunny Kapoor. You're welcome, sir. And here in our studios, Philippe Herzog, co-founder of Confrontations Europe, a think tank that advocates a European political union. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening.
And Ali Fatemi teaches economics at the American Graduate School. The France 24 debate, you can always comment on Facebook, as you have been doing this Monday, and on Twitter, where you can find us at François F24. Now, barring a miracle, the Greeks will have to return to the polls. And with each day that passes, we know that in the past hour, there's been a new meeting set up by the Greek president. Each day that passes, the credibility of that country's political institutions takes, it seems, a further knock among the voters.
We're not asking for something extraordinary, but apparently the politicians don't care as much as the Greek people do. It seems like they're living in their own world.
The 2 big parties must get the message that the Greek people sent them. 70% said no to the bailout. People can't tolerate this situation any longer.
We're exhausted. We don't want any more of this. The politicians have to cooperate.
Yanis Varoufakis, is there a sense of urgency that's missing among Greece's political class at this point?
It's very hard to conjure up enough sympathy for Greek politicians. But I have to say that we should not be surprised that the political scene in Greece is imploding, following what is not just a downturn, just a recession, but a complete and utter collapse of the Greek social economy. What would one expect to see but a political implosion as well? We have 2 major parties that have been ruling Greece in different shapes and forms for decades, that effectively have ceased to exist as dominant forces in the Greek polity. So there is a lot of dust and a lot of debris created as a result of this political and economic implosion, and it will take some time before before our view becomes clear again of what is going on.
There's some that say, Yanis, that the Greeks, when it comes to the outside world, haven't really up to now played hardball enough. That they haven't, for instance, said, well, we'll take our business to the Russians and to the Chinese.
That is utter nonsense. The Chinese and the Russians are not idiots, and there is nothing that they will do. They won't touch Greece until and unless the Eurozone brings its own house in order. There's no doubt that the Chinese in particular would be very much interested in investing in all parts of the periphery of the Eurozone, but not until and unless the Eurozone gets its act together. So Greece threatening to leave the euro and join China or Russia in some kind of new trading bloc is nonsense. Look, the Eurozone is in an advanced stage of disintegration. Greece is only the canary in the mine. If you in France or we in Greece or people in Berlin continue to maintain this steadfast error in their head that this is just the case of a small country that has gone awry. We're simply bringing the collapse of the Eurozone much, much closer.
Philippe Herzog, do you agree that Greece is just the canary in the coal mine?
I agree with what was said here. The Eurozone is menaced of disintegration, not only because of Greece, of course. The huge discrepancies of competitiveness between our countries have not been dealt with. And after Greece, there will be Portugal and Spain, for instance. So it's a very tricky situation at the moment. And I would say that the arm wrestling between Greece and the European Union at the moment is something very dangerous, because it can bring to an early exit of Greece, and the consequences would be far more devastating than one is forecasted at the moment, because contagion would be there, and the political symbol of a first breaking from the Eurozone would be something absolutely huge. But the arm wrestling can lead us towards that.
Ali Fatemi, do you agree that Greece, again, Yanis was saying that Greece is the canary in the coal mine?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it will begin with Greece, and if Greece leaves the euro, next is going to be Portugal, then the pressure is going to be on Spain. The essential thing is, I don't think anyone has explained to the Greek people what it means in the short term to leave the euro. Devaluation is fine after 5 years. The first 5 years is going to be disaster.
And they've just had 5 years of recession.
And if there's a devaluation, there's going to be 5 years of added misery. Argentina went through that when they broke away from the dollar. Their money was dollar, and after 5 years, 10 years, maybe they become competitive because drachma would be very cheap, but wages and standard of living will take a tremendous drop if they leave the euro. And I think this has not been explained to people, because Greeks are rational people. I can't understand somebody not realizing that the bad situation could get worse.
Over the weekend, not one but 3 European central bankers talking aloud about a Greek exit. There was most notably the Irish Central Bank Governor Patrick Honohan saying technically it can be managed. It would be a knock to the confidence of the euro as a whole. So it would add to the complexity of the operation until things settle down again. It is not necessarily fatal, but it is not attractive. And this Monday, here's how the German Chancellor denied a Greek exit. All right, we'll hear from Angela Merkel later. She made her remarks, by the way, Sunny Kapoor, while visiting a German-Spanish school on a European project today in Berlin. Sunny Kapoor, the German Chancellor denying at this point, is that damning with faint praise?
Well, I think that the damage has already been inflicted, and what you just referred to in terms of the 3 central bankers coming in and several other leading policymakers. Once the cat is out of the bag, and you saw the market reaction today, which was total panic, and this is just the beginning. The fact of the matter is that it's not, as one of the previous speakers was saying, an arm wrestling, but it's actually a game of chicken, where the European leaders on the one hand and Greek politicians on the other are playing a very high stakes game of chicken, and the end of this simply cannot be good. No one is prepared, not the European Central Bank, not Portugal, not Ireland, not Spain, not Greece itself. No one is prepared for a Greek exit. And despite the fact, as again one of the previous speakers was saying, that the Greek people have not themselves been told how painful such an exit be, we must remember that the overwhelming majority of Greek citizens still favor a membership of the euro area. The disconnect is what terms this membership is at. And there are certain politicians in Greece today who are saying that a euro membership, a continued euro membership is possible, whilst at the same time completely rejecting the bailout terms. And I think that is the big question. European leaders are saying that is not possible. And a compromise has to be found, and has to be found soon. As with every single day that this uncertainty hangs over the rest of the euro area, it implies additional economic costs, additional social costs, and additional political costs, some of them potentially irreversible. This is irresponsibility of the highest order.
What would be in that compromise?
I think that some of the terms of the Greek bailout have undoubtedly to be eased. It would include the growth compact that Redefine has been promoting since January, which has now become fashionable. The problem is that this growth compact means different things to different people, and it would need to mean something substantial for the Greek citizens. For example, a European Investment Bank-led program for investment into Greece and the other peripheral countries. For example, a further easing of some of the terms of the repayments of debt, particularly to the public sector, that could be extended. There could be a further moratorium on some payments which are going to come due fairly soon. Perhaps the European Central Bank getting 100 cents back to the euro on the Greek debt holdings that it has. Perhaps that could be revisited. There are several things that can be done to ease some of the short-term pain that Greece is going through. But what the Greeks must remember is that the alternative is worse.
Yanis Varoufakis, we've heard from everyone around this table except you. What are the Greeks ready to hear on this point? What are they ready to accept?
Well, let me get the one thing absolutely straight. The Greek people don't really need to be educated about the perils of exiting the Eurozone. As already Sonny said, the vast majority, while rejecting the bailout and the austerity package, are steadfast in favor of staying in the Eurozone, 70%. The question is not whether we should get out of the Eurozone. The question is how to stay in the Eurozone. And the judgment of most people, and I think this is quite correct, is that the way we have been doing it over the last 2 years, of piling new huge loans on the weak shoulders of an insolvent state, in exchange for austerity that reduces the national income from which those loans will have to be repaid, this is a sure way of becoming a failed state, like we have become more or less. Mm-hmm. So what would the Greeks like to hear? Well, I don't know, because, what would the French like to hear? There's no such thing as the Greeks or the French. I mean, there's such diversity of opinion. But let me tell you what I would like to hear. I would like to hear some rationality. Look, last week, the Greek state borrowed from the EFSF 4 billion euros at about 4.5% interest rate in order to return it to the ECB. So you have a failed insolvent Greek state borrowing from one branch of the European Union to give to another, when everybody knows that the Greek social economy is imploding under the weight of the measures that are essential for these loans to be given. So this cannot be a rational way of dealing with the situation, can it now? So I think that we need a short space of time during which we establish a very simple principle. What is important at the moment is to arrest the free fall of Greek GDP. Because if you don't do that, then no one is going to get their money back and Greece will die. The second principle, which I think is essential, is that you cannot continue to have this approach of treating the Greek crisis as a Greek crisis and separately from Ireland or Portugal or Spain. Whatever applies to Greece today must apply to Ireland. It must apply to Portugal. It must apply to Spain. Because let's not forget that these shenanigans with the Spanish banks being salvaged by the quasi-insolvent Spanish state, while at the same time the Spanish banks are borrowing from the ECB in order to lend to the Spanish. This has to end. We can no longer manage this euro crisis in this irrational manner. So what I would like to see personally is a situation where there is a suspension of repayments to the official sector by the Greek government, while the Greek government is told in no uncertain terms that it has to live within its own budget constraint, that is, no more loans to Greece, in order to cover any primary deficits, but at the same time, suspension of repayments to the official sector until a solution is found for the whole of the Eurozone, which must involve, as Sonny said, an investment-led recovery program, which uses the European Investment Bank as its central plank, as its central pillar. There must be a rational way of managing centrally the Maastricht compliant part of the debt, and that is very important, but no politician wants to talk about this, unfortunately and tragically. We can no longer afford separate banking systems in Europe. It is preposterous to have a French national banking system, a German, a Greek, a Spanish. There should be no such thing as a Spanish or a Greek bank anymore. We should unite the banking sectors and supervise them centrally and recapitalize them centrally without pushing the recapitalization through the books of the various quasi-insolvent states.
All right, so let me get reactions on what you're saying here.
Yes.
Philippe Herzog, do you agree with what Yanis Varoufakis has said, that there should be just one central bank and no longer national central banks?
First, I would like to react to Mr. Kapoor because I approve what he said, but I want to add a few more comments, and I'll speak about the banking sector, of course. There is a dangerous gambling at the moment. In Greece, Mr. Tsipras, what does he say to the people?
The far left candidate, the far left leader, sorry.
We can say no to the conditions of the bailing out, and the union won't push us out because it would be much too dangerous for them. That's what he's saying. And this is a gamble. And as regards the European Union, they are not gambling, but if the problem is that if they give something to Greece now, they ruin all their credit as regards the other countries and the stability. And
so it is a game of chicken, in other words.
It is. He's right. Yeah. He's right.
And on Yanis Varoufakis' point that there should be one set of rules for all of Europe.
Yes, but connected with the Greek solution, because it will take a long time to have some sort of banking European policy. But before speaking of it, the solution as regards Greece would be, first, they have to have a gesture, say they will do more to have a budget with balanced in the next 1 or 2 years, and doing more towards that. But at the same time, the union should be able to not only to bring flexibility, but to have some sort of new device towards them. That would be to have a restructuring plan for their debt, turning the debt in long term so that it can be long term with a low rate of interest, and at the same time, of course, drastic conditions, plus a help towards growth. That means for Greeks having some sort of competitive industry, which takes a long...
All right, this notion of injecting more growth, we're going to come back to it when we return. Sure. Stay with us. This is the France 24 debate.